Caslin is someone who enjoys speaking, so he speaks a lot, 30 times a year. He is the outgoing president of his home club, an incoming vice president of education for MoE, an incoming vice president of membership for his third club, Shilling Speakers in UK. Please join me in welcoming Pat Caslin today with his speech titled, Order, Order, Pat Caslin.
We've all been to meetings of our Toastmasters club or other clubs that we're members of where we wonder, what's going on here? Why don't I have a voice? Or why can't I say something or change what's being said or move emotion or change emotion? Or you have that feeling when you go in that there's a ring put in your nose, there's a string put in it, and you're pulled along to the meeting. I've been to loads of them, and it's very frustrating because nobody ever tells you what are the rules of procedure, and you're brought along. And you know what? There are rules. They're called Robert's Rules of Order. And if you're a member or if you're a leader, it pays to understand the basic principles of these rules because it puts you into a position where you can either lead with confidence, and when things get tricky, as they sometimes do in Toastmasters meetings, you know what the rules are. You know the procedures. You understand the rights of the chair. You understand the rights of the members. You understand the basic principles on which these rules are grounded. So let me tell you what they are. Fundamental principles are that everyone has the right to participate in discussions if they wish before anyone else can speak for a second time. Everyone has the right to know what's going on at all times. Now, the right to know includes the right to attend at meetings. It includes the right to understand what the procedures are at those meetings. And it includes the right to be heard. And it also means that only one matter can be discussed at a time. That is a fundamental principle. So there are not a number of discussions. And a matter under discussion is called a motion. So how do you organize? How do you know how to create a motion or defer a motion, or what can you do about a motion? So the meeting will have an agenda, or should have an agenda. It should have a specified time at which it starts and at which it ends. And the chair's responsibility is to run the meeting to the agenda. That is your job as a leader. Now, you'll often find, as I have at different meetings, somebody has an axe to grind and they want to hog the floor, and they're entitled to bring up something that they want to discuss once they get recognized by the chair, and this is important. And if you want to bring up a motion, your motion has to be seconded. If it's not seconded, it dies. When you're recognized by the chair, you bring your motion, you state it clearly, you speak to it, your seconder speaks to it, and then everybody in the room is entitled to speak on that motion as well. Now, can the motion be amended? Yes, it can, because somebody produces an amended motion or they produce a different wording to the same motion. To amend a motion or produce a different word, it needs to be seconded, and the meeting needs to vote. A majority of the vote, those present need to vote in favor of the amendment. Can you strike a motion out? Yes, you can. If a majority of the members, if somebody proposed that the motion be struck out and a majority of the members declare that yes, the motion be struck out, well, then the motion gets struck out. Can you move it to a different time? Yes, you can. Can you take it back to committee? Yes, you can. Can you take a motion, for example, that you voted on and say, I've changed my mind on that. I've heard different things now. Can you move that the motion be reheard? Yes, you can. If the majority of the members decide that that is the appropriate thing to do. Now, can you limit debate? Limiting debate is a fundamental right, or debate is a fundamental right of the members. So you can't limit debate, or you can't close a discussion without finishing a debate, or you can't put restrictions on the times around a debate unless you've got a majority of 2/3 of the members, because these are majorities that are required in order to ensure that members' fundamental rights are not trammeled or limited. Now, if you're in a meeting where things become difficult, or you feel, I don't have a right to speak here, well, then it pays to know what the rules of the normal rules of procedure for most voluntary organizations, or most organizations that run fundamentally parliamentary procedures. And these are Robert's rules. It pays to know what the basic principles of these rules are. It pays to know how you interrupt. So you can interrupt in different ways, but essentially the ways to interrupt are to seek the attention of the chair, except in cases where there's something, a point of order is that we're off the agenda, point of parliamentary procedure is that you're not doing this the right way, or a point of safety, you're entitled to interrupt for those points, but otherwise you can't interrupt without the attention of the chair. So as much as leadership is about style and personality and the way you interact with people, sometimes you need to get something formal into your war chest and into your processes so that you understand how you deal with people fairly and in accordance with the rules. And Robert's rules are incorporated into the rules of Toastmasters International for how meetings are run. So I recommend to you that you get a little bit familiar, if you're running meetings, or if you're in the chair, or if you're even a member, to understand your rights in relation to managing meetings. Get yourself a copy, the simplified Robert's Rules of Order online, it's free, or buy the 12th edition because they've been around for over 100 years. It'll only cost you a tenner on Kindle or something. It's worth having. It's a big tome, but it's worth having. So I recommend Robert's Rules of Order to you. And remember the basic rights to participate in discussion, to be allowed to speak before anybody can speak a second time, to right to know what's going on, the right to interrupt in certain cases, and that only one motion can be discussed at a time. Robert's Rules of Order. I recommend them to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Pat. We're going to have a Q&A session now, and I'd like to kick this off. I'd like a real life example of how it works. And I would like you to use this morning's discussion. We did not discuss this, but in our discussion this morning about changing some of our rules within our club, how did we do according to all the things you talked about? Discussion, motion, etc.
I think you did fairly well because you introduced it as a motion. You were clear on what the motion was. You explained it to all the members present. You then invited comment or debate on the motion, and there was debate. People spoke generally once, generally. I think you could have said, okay, we don't want to hear from somebody a second time before we've heard from anybody, and go around the room. Anybody who wishes to speak was allowed to speak, and then you called for a vote. And the vote was the motion. Brad explained the motion, or he recited the motion. A vote was called and a vote was had. So I think that that was done very, very well, actually. So for example, I had a meeting in my own club and we had an annual general meeting, and I knew there was going to be a lot of debate. So at the beginning of the meeting, in order not for the debate not to go on ad nauseum, I asked the meeting, I explained to the meeting that these were the rules of procedure, and the procedure was if we wanted to limit debate, we needed a 2/3 majority, and we called for a vote. We got a vote, and we limited debate to 2 minutes per person. Everybody got to speak. Now we got to the end of the meeting, and then somebody decided that let's open another motion. And people were tired at that stage. So I asked again for a vote to close the meeting. And because that's interfering with the fundamental rights, we need a 2/3 majority. And with the 2/3 majority, we closed the meeting.
Did that end up going to the parking lot, as they say? So you'll do it again, but the person has to bring it up, or it's just
no, that was the matter over. So we moved to close the meeting, and if something doesn't get brought to the table again, well, then it dies after the second meeting if it's not raised again.
Great, thank you. Other questions, Donna?
Yes, my question is, in all the meetings I have been in, there have been times when they have stated, okay, we don't need a discussion and a vote on this, that. This, we need a vote on it. How can we distinguish when we need to vote and when we don't? Is there any chart or any aid that will help us understand it?
Sure, Donna. If somebody wishes to bring forward a matter for voting, they raise a motion. So if you want something to be discussed, but you don't necessarily need it, you want to air it as a point of information, as distinct from a point for decision, well then bring it forward, but make it clear that there is no vote required. You just want a discussion on it. But if you want something to be voted on, well then move a motion to adopt or to decide or to change, or a motion that has a decision requirement on it. And if something is brought for discussion, but no decision is required on it, well, then that's fine too. So that's whoever moves the motion decides on what they want from that motion.
Right. And I think that what's great about that is it tells people we're here to hear you. We want to hear you.
Yes.
But you've got rules around it. So Lavinia is going to be, I see the green light with David for the 5 Q&A. Lavinia, you have the last question. And when you see the red, wrap it up, Pat, please.
Sure.
Okay. My question is, in a meeting, it's going on and then someone says point of order. What does that mean? They're interrupting or don't agree?
So point of order, the order is the agenda. So if we're not dealing with matters on the agenda in the order in which they're dead, that's a point of order. As distinct from a point of parliamentary procedure is a point which says that we are not dealing with this in the correct way. So that the way that is being described in terms of the rules for dealing with it are not being complied with. So you have differences, points of order, points of parliamentary procedure, and there are other different points that you can raise. But a point of order typically is a point in terms of the way in which the procedure, the order in which the items are being dealt with.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Pat. And thank you for a great speech. Excellent job of showing what a good Q&A can look like. Mr. Timer, may we now have 90 seconds. Please provide feedback to Pat in the chat directly to him. And also for our guests, you are also welcome to provide feedback. And in your feedback, what did he do well and what can he do better?
Judith,
Federal Evaluator.
thank you, who had the opportunity to evaluate Pat's speech. Would you please share that with us?
Thank you. April, I would love to know what the word is, and I will have to think about this for a whole entire month. Oh, well, I am so sorry. Anyway, Madam General Evaluator and fellow Toastmasters and Pat, it was great to know about procedures, parliamentary procedures, how to run a meeting, what are motions, and all this other things. But what I am going to do is to say what I would have liked to add to the speech. First, just in case if somebody has no idea who Roberts was. And what we need to know is Robert was an Army officer. I actually read about this a long time ago, who decided that we need rules in order to get some kind of a meeting done, otherwise people shouting left and right. So these are important element. Second is, in order for us to really understand, is to say, tell us an example of a motion, whatever it is. We don't want to kill animals, or whatever the motion that you decide to do. So then we know what they are. And then you could illustrate each of these, how to amend this motion. What does that really mean? And how do you strike a motion? I mean, the reason I know about this is because I attended about 3 meetings in the parliamentary Toastmasters. So I have some idea, because we Toastmasters not learning anything how to really run a meetings. I have never had any idea, and I've been in this organization for a long time. All I know is that the president opens this and people say things, and I have no idea. And then now lately, I hear people say, oh, excuse me, I am point of order. I have something to say. And I thought, what does that mean? So it was really great. I certainly learned a great deal from your presentations. But for me, it would have been nice to have specific examples and how this actually worked and why is it really important. I mean, I understand why is it important to run a meeting properly. And yes, there were some rather chaotic thing in Toastmasters here and there, but some of these would have made a little bit easier for me to have concrete examples, what exactly and how this whole thing works. But thank you very much for your presentation.
Was heard. Thank you, Judith. Good coverage of Pat's evaluation. And I like that you shared with him you wanted a little more details of concrete examples. That way it will help us better understand the rules. Now, Pat, I appreciate you covering this topic today. I think it's a topic that all clubs should hear about.